All right, so Coach Judiscak, thanks for joining me today in our conversation and conversation in general with the entire coaching staff that is going to have an opportunity to hear this conversation. You and I have talked a lot about identity, and we share a lot of things with our faith, and a lot of different principles that I think our heartbeat is aligned with. So I wanted coaches to hear from you on your perspective of last season, some thoughts that you had in line with identity, the identity of the team, and how you mixed that into what you did through last season. And I think there'll be tremendous value for coaches to hear from you. And maybe this video goes viral and thousands of coaches hear from you eventually. I think that the world would benefit from hearing from Coach Judiscak. So thank you for joining me this morning. So if I were to ask you one question, for starters, what would you consider is the identity of your team?
Yeah, that's well, first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate that. Yeah. I don't know if the world's really ready for all this right now, but that is very humbling. No, that's a great question. Thinking about identity and thinking about our program, I think over the years that I've been the coach of the program, I really think relationship, like if it's one word, I think relationship tends to be the one word that I would try to characterize our program as, building relationship, because as we all know, as coaches, as athletes, sports is only a momentary part of our lives. It's only a finite amount of time we're going to be involved in a sport, especially as players. And so I think really focusing on building relationships and different character traits that help foster relationship building, those are things that I always want to be about as a program. I think of our goal, our mission statement as a program is to help develop student athletes into hardworking young adults who love those around them by living lives of humility and integrity. I know there's a lot in there, but each element that's part of that mission statement is an intentional characteristic that we want to focus on and try to develop as we play soccer within the girls soccer program.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm coming down to your practice this spring, and I'll just wander around and on occasion. And what kind of things would I maybe be witnessing that would align with that identity?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Habitual things that we like to do. We don't want to just make the statement of our mission statement and then leave it behind and then go throughout the season. We do want to try to be intentional about finding opportunities and ways in which we can foster that type of thing. So a couple of things we do every week. We have a weekly trait. So I've got a big board, a big whiteboard that I have at practice that has like the practice plan for the day and some like important days of the week, like what days we have games and stuff like that. But then we also have a character trait on the board, whether it's self-sacrifice or honesty or humility or perseverance, some character trait that we want to value as a program. And so we have that trait on the board because we want to keep our eyes on that trait all week. And so what I ask the girls to do is I ask the girls to fill out a notebook. I give them a journal at the beginning of every season. They have a little notebook journal that we utilize. And we try to have every week the girls write in that notebook examples of that trait that they're seeing in their lives. So maybe it's honesty this week. And so we ask them to be mindful of that in school, on the soccer field, and then also at home, and make some notes of that and give some examples. So if you come to a practice, you may see us starting a meeting or starting a training session off with, hey, somebody give me an example of honesty that you've seen in school in the last couple of days. And so hopefully a girl or two can have an example to bring out, and we can recognize that and acknowledge that as significant. And so that's one thing that you may see us partaking in. And another thing that we love to do another thing we love to do is a segment that we call Spotlight. And I think I've talked about this before with other coaches, is at the beginning of every training session, we pull one player up in front of everybody. And what they do is they tell us their name and they tell us one or two things about themselves, but then we open it up to questions, and the other players are expected to ask a question to that player. And then of course, remember that answer, not just ask a question and check the list, so that at the end of training, when we're done, we bring that player back up and we go around and we see, well, what did we learn about this player today? So, and the girls, they tend to get creative as time goes on of not asking the same questions. And so it's nice to see them broadening their interest level in what they could ask somebody. So that would be another element of, relationship that we're trying to build that you may see at practice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome stuff, Coach. That's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So, in this imperfect world that we live in, we have the identity, and we proclaim it. This is who we want to be. And in this imperfect world, then things happen. And it's when you see things that are counter to that identity or those core values or those things that you're striving to be as a team, as a program, how do you step into that space as a leader?
Yeah, that's a reality that we live in, is that while we have an idealized version of what we want everybody to be, the reality is we're going to fall short of that fairly often, and myself included. And so when those times come up, when we have moments where players or coaches are acting selfishly, or they're acting in a way that is belittling to their teammates or the players, or I want to be able to address those things. I want to be able, if it's me, I want to be able to show the humility of apologizing and addressing that in a way that the girls know it's okay to make mistakes, but you do need to address that in a way that tries to repair the relationship if it's something that's kind of broken that relationship.
Yeah.
Same thing for the players, and that's really a hard thing. I've found is trying to balance, being the coach, being the authority figure of the group, but also wanting to connect with the players on an individual level. So you want to know what's going on in their lives, but at the same time, you kind of want the leaders on the team to handle some of the things that hopefully they can handle without, the authority coming in and having to address those things. So usually when I hear about maybe an incident that happened within some of the players on the team, I usually gather together the girls that I consider to be the leaders on the team and have a conversation with them. Hey, what happened? Tell me how has this affected the team? And then what are your thoughts on how to maybe address this, right? I'd rather you try to address it as leaders before I have to come in and maybe address it as the coach. And what I found is that typically works pretty well, depending on the leaders. It usually works pretty well that the leaders are able to come to like a consensus on how to handle the situation and then address it in a way that's respectful, but also direct, so that they can move forward and help whatever that situation may be. And I guess I'll give you an example really quickly.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, we had a player after a game send out a text message to her teammates, bad mouthing one of her teammates, like, oh, why does she play so much? And she shouldn't be on the field. And, really destructive types of comments. Well, turned out she had included the player she was talking about on the text message. So that obviously was a situation where everybody now knew what had happened, including the player that was being talked about. So it was a good opportunity to kind of see, well, where do we really believe that relationship is important? And if we do, then how can we address this in a way that's meaningful? So to her credit, the girl that, and again, I think her emotions just kind of got to her because maybe she didn't get as much playing time as this girl did. In her emotions, she had made a mistake. She had done the wrong thing in trying to badmouth her behind her back to teammates. And to her credit, when I had a meeting with her, she was very emotional, very, very sorrowful about having done that. But to her credit, she said that she would like to apologize to the team collectively. right? Even without me saying, well, what are you going to do about this? She said, I think it'd be probably best if I apologize to her and to everybody as a team, and it was like, whoa, okay, that's going to be hard. That's not going to be easy for you to do that. Do you understand what that's going to take? And she's like, yeah, but I think it's right. So she went and she did that, like before our next game, and we met together. She stood up in front of everybody and she did that. And that humility, that again, that's an important part of our program. That humility went a long way in helping that relationship come back together, because obviously if that hadn't happened or we didn't address it, that could have been some of our team mindset.
Yeah, that is awesome stuff, Coach. I love how you involve the kids, the leaders, in the formation of the path forward. I love how you've always done that. And to your point, I have always found that conflict has the opportunity on the other side of conflict to have stronger relationships. It certainly has the opportunity for a weakened relationship, but if navigated correctly or well, there's maybe not always a correctly, but if it's navigated well, it has the opportunity for strengthening relationships. And we've talked before, like let's not fear the conflict because of that fact, that we can get through it to a more positive end. And man, you just do such a tremendous job of that navigation. And I love also that you guys come off a state championship last year. What a fun ride that was. And people will look at that season and say, man, he did a great job. But the nuance of the leadership of a head coach is so much 98% unseen. And the stuff that you're talking about takes real work. So I applaud that and I appreciate that so much. So season coming up, what are you looking forward to most?
Gosh, there's so many things that looking forward to, just like any season though, look forward to just getting back out there with girls, looking back on the field and meeting the new girls that are coming in as freshmen or any transfers that have come in. I mean, that's always an exciting time in general, but just the fact that I think a lot of the girls understand that it's possible, right? The ultimate on the field accomplishment is a possibility. I think that's just an exciting thing to think about. And certainly I don't want to get caught up in the trap of now my words are mainly focused on winning a state championship, because they never have been. I don't want to fall into that trap. I want to continue to have my thoughts and my actions geared towards relationship. But I think there's just a natural excitement that a lot of the girls have about, man, we did that and we could do that again. Why couldn't we do that again? So there is a lot of excitement there. So really, obviously being the first time we won a state championship, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, there's things that are going to come up that I'm not going to necessarily know how to navigate through. But I think my mindset right now is to just do what we've always done, continue to do what we've always done, and not get caught up in, hey, everybody's targeting you guys now. What are you going to do about that? And you got a bullseye on your back. It's like, okay, I get that. I get that way of thinking, but that's just a distraction. That's just taking us away from focusing on what we've always focused on. And that is trying to build relationship with the girls together. And so that the excitement and yet the kind of the question marks about what's going to come up, all of that I'm looking forward to as we get into this next season.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Coach. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see your group of girls and your program back on the field. And when I wander down, I know I'm going to witness those things. I know I am, because I have so many times. So again, thank you, Coach. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And, we'll be talking soon, I'm sure. Next week, Friday. We'll see you Friday.
Thank you, Todd.
All right. See you, Coach.
See you.